Space, and it feels good to be here. I'd also like to thank Molly Heinzler, who is the coordinator for the summit this year. She has done an incredible job getting all of our speakers taken care of and making sure all of you have the information you need to be here today. I'd like to thank the UFCW's Cannabis Workers Union for making this morning's reception possible. We really appreciate the support, and it's heartening to see labor unions starting to come into the cannabis space to take care of our workers. And, I'd like to also share a couple of special thank yous today. This year's summit is a little bit different from others. For those of you who have joined us in the past before, we've had a tradition of bringing in journalists to moderate our panel discussions because we want to make sure that news about cannabis is getting out far and wide. This year we pivoted a little bit, and we decided that we wanted to have the advocates lead the conversation. So I'd like to give a very special thank you today to the member organizations of the 420 Unity Coalition, who are here this week in Washington, D.C., pressing the administration and Congress to deschedule cannabis once and for all. Without the work of these important organizations, and particularly Jason Ortiz, Maritza Perez-Medina, Mike Liszewski, Morgan Fox, Amber Center, and Kat Packer, we would not be here today. These are the folks on the front lines fighting for freedom and justice for all Americans. I'd also like to thank an advocate who's not here with us today, but I sure wish he was, Justin Streckel of the Bullpack. Many of you know that name, and if you've been on Capitol Hill at all in the past 5 years, you've probably run into Justin. He's done incredible work to support all of our organizations, and we look forward to hopefully seeing him at NCF this weekend. When I heard that we were going to be here at the Martin Luther King Library today, I was struck by the power of having a man of faith who believed so much in justice and believed so much in the rights of all human beings, in a way hosting us today. And our next speaker is another man of faith and another man of justice, Reverend Raphael Warnock, Senator Warnock. And so as I was preparing today, I wanted to read a bit back over Dr. King's words, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about Senator Warnock. And I found a little passage that Senator Warnock said not so long ago about Dr. King that seemed especially important to share with all of you today. Reverend Warnock said, "Martin Luther King Jr. said to all of us that we need leaders who are not in love with money, but in love with justice. Not in love with publicity, but in love with humanity. Leaders who can subject their own ego to the pressing issues of the cause of freedom. The United States Senate, the United States Congress should benefit from hearing that message right now. Centering the people rather than the politicians." The phrase that stands out to me is centering the people and not the politicians. And that's why we're here today, to discuss the human impact of cannabis policy. And as you'll hear today, there is much work left to do, but at the same time, much progress to celebrate. This week, DC is not just home to the National Cannabis Festival and our Policy Summit. It's also the convening ground for hundreds, maybe thousands, of advocates who are here to demand an end to the unjust war on drugs. It is the spirit of these advocates that have driven this movement forward. The fight for freedom, the fight for justice, and the fight to protect the voiceless and the vulnerable. This week, and at this time in our country and in the world, I feel very grateful for the work of our cannabis policy justice fighters. I'm proud of their boldness, I'm proud of their leadership, and I'm proud of their persistence in pushing the needle forward. As we gather here today surrounded by the collective power of our convening, I find myself thinking of advocates and freedom fighters and human rights defenders in other parts of the world who are struggling right now. Those who are risking their lives to defend the vulnerable without adequate support. Those who have lost their lives defending what is right. And those who have no safe harbor to which they can escape. I'd like you to join me in a moment of silence to hold space for these freedom fighters, for the human rights defenders, and for the lives that have been lost. It is my sincere wish that all people can live in a world like the one Dr. King described and Reverend Warnock spoke of. A world with leaders in love with humanity who are willing to subject their own ego to the pressing causes of freedom. And today I feel hopeful that that day will come. I feel hopeful because of the advocates in this room. Before I close, I'd like to mention that we have a few more activities taking place here at the library today. Students for Sensible Drug Policy and Freedom Grow are hosting an expungement resources fair. You can get information in the foyer, and they'll take you to where the fair is taking place in this building. The Last Prisoner Project will be hosting a lobbying training at 4 p.m. The Cannabis Regulators of Color are hosting our reception directly after the summit today at 6 p.m. And we also invite you to come back to this room around 6:30 for the Equity Trade Network's documentary, Not Your Token. So there's a lot happening here at the library today. We're so glad to have all of you here. And now, without further ado, I will introduce our opening video, which is from Senator Raphael Warnock.
Hello and welcome to the National Cannabis Policy Summit. Every year, this diverse group of activists and leaders from business, healthcare, and civil rights organizations comes together to discuss the most pressing cannabis policy challenges and opportunities. The work many of you have done to break down stigmas and address barbaric criminal penalties while building a diverse culture within the cannabis community cannot be overstated. Addressing the consequences of those who have been impacted by cannabis criminalization is extremely important to my work as a United States Senator, and it is why I have led efforts to truly understand the economic and the human cost of the war on drugs. While there is still a lot more work to be done, we should be proud of the progress made and renew our efforts in this fight. I hope this optimism and commitment to restorative justice, to equity, is evident throughout your discussions today, and I look forward to seeing your continued success. Keep the faith and keep looking up.